Welcome to Bluefish Radio. I'm your host, Lawrence Gunther. Bluefish Radio is a show about the future of fish and fishing in Canada, so you will have the skills you need to become a steward of your favorite fishing hole. I've heard a lot about Philip Ling and the Maitland Tower project, located on the north shore of the Upper St. Lawrence River between Prescott and Brockville. Well, finally had a chance to go out there and take a tour of the grounds itself. And here's my conversation with Philip Ling, the founder of the whole initiative, and his vision for the project. Philip Ling, thanks for joining me on Bluefish Radio, sir. Where are you now?
I'm in Markham, where I've lived for the last 20 years, and I've sort of got one foot into Maitland now. But here I am in my backyard, and it's a sunny day, which is nice to be always outside, to be in nature, one way or another, wherever you are is super important. So
I hear you, and thanks for taking the time to talk with me. I really enjoyed our tour of the Maitland property, and it's just so inspiring what you're doing there. And of course, I love buildings and I love history, so there's a lot of that there too. But talk to me about how you discovered the Maitland Tower and that property there, and what inspired you to jump in with both feet.
It was something totally unintentional, as some of things in our lives are. I was taking a break from work, and here in Toronto, and my wife has her roots are in Acadia in New Brunswick. So I decided, and I've been biking and doing triathlons for quite a while. And I said, I'm just going to do a solo bike ride. And so off I went. And of course, once you get out of Toronto, you're on Route 2, which is along the water for most of the time along the St. Lawrence. And
the old highway. That's the old highway before the 401. Yeah.
That's when it was a horse path at one point. And so so I think it was like on the fourth day, here I was moseying along, and the St. Lawrence is an amazing place. And I it was one of those perfect idyllic mornings with the sun glittering across the water, and I'd just come out of Brockville, where it's a lot of beautiful old buildings, and then there were sections of it where you could see the old buildings had just been bulldozed and brand new, just brand new stuff built, and large buildings sort of really taking over the shorefront from where there had been fields, and you'd had beautiful views that are now is house kind of thing. Yeah. And then I came upon, here am I riding along, and I come along to this place place on the point right on the shore, and it's like 13 acres with almost a kilometer of waterfront that's really sort of undeveloped and old, and it really looked really run down. There's this tower, empty 80-foot tower on it, and a bunch of farm buildings that look really in rough shape. And there was this for sale sign, and I thought, well, that's next. I know what's going to happen.
Wow, just like that, it hit you, boom.
And I figured just these buildings are just going to get bulldozed, and a bunch of new stuff is going to get it's going to get put here, and that'll be it. History will be gone forever, and nature will be gone forever, and and sort of, you sort of dwell about that for a while. And of course I keep riding, and then, of course, when you're riding, you have things twirl around your head and you have space. And I thought, well, hold it a second. I could be the guy that bought it and then not do that. And I could be the agent of change, and say, I could restore those buildings and, and keep the place, very natural. And, I could be that guy. And so literally I called the agent up, I tracked him down, and I tracked him down, and I said, okay, I'm interested. And so, lo and behold, by the time I got out to New Brunswick, I'd bought the property without even seeing it, because wow. I figured I'd seen what there was to see,
Wow, that's incredible. But you're an engineer by background, and I've been involved in construction all my life as well with my family, and I understand the thrill of taking an old building and restoring it and repurposing it, giving it new life. But you have a particular vision for the life of these buildings, and that's, I think, is the real story. And talk to us a bit about what that is.
Well, it's an interesting story, because as I said, I really had no plans for it. I had no plan to buy another property, and so really as I thought about, what's important to me, and nature is super important to me. and the river is super important to me. I grew up in Montreal right along the river, so the St. Lawrence has always been super important to me. And so really what the way things sort of played out was I was going, well, this place can not only be great for me to connect to nature and connect to to the history, the very rich history that's along the St. Lawrence, but I can sort of have it restore the buildings, and then bring other people in and have them also connect to that same experience, because it's that old saying, you protect what you love, and to me, the St. Lawrence and nature is super special, and by other people sharing that experience, I think I can build that same desire and inspire others to want to protect it and to want to experience it as well, because a lot of people haven't had the the luxury or the opportunity to connect to nature in general, and also our river in general. So
I love it. Shorelines are mystical areas. I mean, I always think there's a synergy at a shoreline where you have the water world and the earth world meet, and that cornucopia of life that happens right there at that edge, at that meeting point, is spectacular. So you've got almost a kilometer of that spectacular place that's been changed and altered by us so much in the last 150 years. And before that was such a big part of First Nations communities along the St. Lawrence River there, and so important to them. And hopefully will be important to bringing all that together for all of us and the future of our planet. Yeah, I think the old, the new, the future, it's all going to be right there. Let's talk a little bit about some of these buildings. Hang on here. Which one are we going to go with first?
Why don't we start with the chart house, the building that's really sort of been under construction for the last couple of years.
Okay.
So it's stone buildings. Like most of the buildings there were built in the 1820s. So the tower included, and the stone buildings around it. And so this building was one of the sort of accessory buildings to the mill that was there, the flour mill that this was built for. And basically we've stripped it down, emptied it out, and put in timber frame, and it's a nice big open space where the stone is right there on the inside. And it's really a place of transformation, I think. And like you said, there's that connection, that mystical connection of being on the edge of the water like that. And there's a big deck out at the back and a lot of glass, so that it's a place where people can gather. To me, it's a gathering place, and it'll be a place where people can come together and dream about how to make the world a better place, and how we can make the St. Lawrence healthier, how we can make ourselves healthier, and really see that in a very connected way. And so there's a lot of stone and a lot of glass and a big deck right there at the water.
Wow. How big is that building? Like footprint wise?
It's really not that big. It's less than 2,000 square feet, really. So
yeah.
It's like 30 feet wide, 60 feet long. It's really pretty small building.
But 2,000 square feet wide open is a nice big space for sure. And it's not cavernous like an arena, but to put 100 people in there, no problem.
Yeah, hopefully I feel that it's inspiring, and that's the kind of feedback that I've got from people who walk in right now, even in the middle of sort of construction, sort of going, there's that, wow, this is going to be such a neat space to be in. And I think that's so much about inspiring spaces is about the vibe that you get when you walk in, right? So hopefully that's a vibe where people say, hey, I can make a difference, and the juices flow when you're there, so.
And then you bring in some inspirational content providers, some thought leaders, some scientists, some local knowledge keepers, some traditional knowledge keepers from the First Nations community. And yeah, what a great place, what a great opportunity to have those kind of learning experiences and those exchanges, right?
Exactly.
I love it. So next one.
Yes.
So there's a garage involved in all this too.
It's funny, here, we're all used to sort of waterfront being such a prime thing. And meanwhile, there's this garage, which is also about 60 feet long. And, it's, like two cars backed up, against each other. And there it is right against the water. And,
wow.
it just had a dirt floor, and it was just exactly that, a garage built in whatever the 1920s, 30s, just a stick wood frame building. And it's being transformed into a field station and really a connection to the river. This is where, to me, scientists can come, people from all walks of life can come and say, this is a place, again, it's not a big, but it's an open space where there can be educational activities, there can be research done on the river. So there's a dock that's going to be there. And so one of our partners, the River Institute, so they do health of the St. Lawrence River research, right? So you need a place connected to the river like that. So how can you be more connected than literally to be, 15 feet away from the water? And again,
so this will be a space for the real scientists, the with workstations and sampling tables and fridges and sinks and all of that, and a place where they can really get into the understanding the biology of the river, the ecosystem itself.
Yes, it's what we have. There's a name of a project that we're doing, the restoration of the shoreline. We call it the Dirty Paws Project, and really, it's about this. It's from the song of a band called of Monsters and Men, but which is but again, it's this real bond with nature, and it's okay to get your hands dirty. I mean, you have to get your hands dirty, and it's not really dirty. It's just, immersed in nature. And I think this really is that place of immersion, right? And I think that's where we all get that wow of nature. It's
nice.
You stick your hands in the water and you feel it, and
you smell it, you taste it, you examine it, you lift it up, you feel it, the weight of it, all of that.
A big open floor that can get wet, that can get, and all of that stuff. And it's for that. That.
Now, stables. There was a large stable building on the property. Where's that going?
Well, the stables, the central part of the stables was built way back in the beginning as well, and I'm sure they used horses at the when they had the mill. But the family that lived there for 150 years, the Websters, they were really big into horses, and so it was really like a horse farm. There was a whole a very strong equestrian place, and so now it's sort of laying empty for the last 50 years or so, and so it's run down, but there's so much opportunity, because there it is again, right on the water. There's a big open space on the second floor with the stone walls, and big, more like a barn on the top, and the bottom there's stables. So I mean, it could be all kinds of things, from a restaurant to a again, part more sort of river research and river connected activities. It's it's really sort of so much could happen there. And it's one of those buildings where you can only work on so many things at the same time, and so it's kind of one of those things that's been pushed, and it's next on the list. I don't know, someone with a great idea where you can get that connection to the water and make a difference that way, to have some kind of activity in there. I think that's locally relevant and relevant to the environment and stuff would be great. Like, a farm to table restaurant, you think of that, and wouldn't that be great? Some, where you have local food and all of that. So
we're going to have to film an episode of the Lake to Plate video series that I've been recording over the last number of years. It's a perfect location.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring the fish in from the river, and then say, because it's one of these things where you're going, to me, the health of the river is, if you feel comfortable enough eating the fish from the river, you must feel that the river is healthy enough. And I think that connection is something, I think that's unconsciously really important to everybody.
It is so important. When you eat nature, I agree. When you eat nature, you're committing to look after nature at the same time, because it's a one health relationship. If it's healthy, you're healthy. If you're healthy, you want to make sure the river's healthy. So it's a two-way street for sure.
I like that expression of yours, that one health. I think that's really very meaningful.
So keeping on the trend of growing things and eating things, there's a greenhouse.
Yeah, so the greenhouse is really sort of attached to the family house on the point, and there was a big garden between the house and there's a greenhouse. And to me, of course, the greenhouse, it's not a big greenhouse, but it's a small old greenhouse, which gives it a lot of character. but you know, it's that place of growth, right? It's where things come from, where seeds are grown. And I think that's, you know, it's very symbolic. And again, it's right on the river. And I think, you know, bringing back gardens to, you know, to that site where we already have bees now. So we're making honey, but you know, to have gardens for food, gardens for flowers, for pollinating, for and to be able to have people, you know, connected to the river and the land right next to it again, and feel that it's healthy is I think it's a great place for that. Plus, it's got its own little vibe. You know, all these little spaces along there are, you know, are sort of tucked away, and so you don't feel, you know, connected. You're in this nice little nature bubble, you know, down there by the water at the greenhouse.
We hear more and more about the importance of naturalized shorelines, you know, soft shorelines, as a way of mitigating the impacts of climate change, you know, with surges and floods, and we've seen some pretty crazy floods on the Great Lakes in the last 5-6 years. You know, the 2017, the 2019, those two flood events, and we're going to have more of those. And with Plan 2014 by the IJC, where they want the river to rise up and, you know, and not manage it at such a micro level like they have been, causing the wetlands to dry out. This is all about restoring wetlands, and these wetlands are vital to the health of the ecosystem. Without wetlands, you have no nurseries, you have no incubators, you have none of that place where life begins, and the ecosystem suffers as a result. But maybe, you know, you could be growing some of these native plants in that greenhouse and getting them back out there, right?
Absolutely. And for both for the property along the shoreline there, as well as for other places in the community, right? It would be a great gathering place for that. You know, now that you know, you're talking about shoreline and wetlands and stuff, is that sort of a good segue to, you know, to the next piece, which is really the house on the point. And there's a little creek and a forest, you know, beyond it, a little three acre forest. But it's a very natural place. But you know, the you know, between the house on the and the point, it was all mowed right up to the shoreline, which is pretty typical of a lot of cottages, of course, and people want to see the river. But of course, you know, there's erosion, there's you know, there's nowhere for the animals along the shoreline. You know, that mystical place is a habitat place for them. And so I've already started naturalizing, you know, that whole section of shoreline, and we're going to be planting really, you know, some big trees, small trees, all kinds of natural you know, native plants and fruit trees, and so the animals have the berries and all of that. And people hopefully again will see that, wow, you can have a beautiful view to the river and still have it, you know, be natural and a little wilder, right? And I think with the creek, I mean, it's pretty dry right now, given the water's so low and we haven't had much rain, but it'll be great to help, you know, restore that, because there's runoff obviously from salt in the winter and all of that. And so there's an opportunity to be connected to regenerating nature and making nature healthier. And again, being, you know, seeing that everything is connected like that. So
I love it. I love it. And I think you're right. It's so important. You know, we've been manicuring our lawns and our shoreline properties to a fault. And you see in Quebec, you know, they've mandated, you know, buffer zones now on private property. If you own private property, shoreline property, you can't cut anything down within 30 feet of the shoreline, or in some cases 50 feet of the shoreline. It's just not allowed. You can't cut the grass, you can't trim brushes, you can't cut trees down, none of that. And just to let it be natural, and a buffer zone, you know, and when you're on the water, it just looks so much more natural. It looks so much less artificial. So there's lessons to be learned for the rest of the country from what Quebec's doing, and you've got a great spot for that. But talk to me about this house. I mean, what are you going to do with this old Gatsby house from the?
It is that interesting, right? It's, you know, it was first a log cabin in you know, in the 1790s, and
wow.
And then, you know, over the years, you know, little pieces got grafted onto it, and then, you know, it ended up being, you know, the house of the guy who built the mill, and then, you know, the family after that. And so it really reminds you of having once in a day, you know, of having been a fancy, very fancy house, like you say, the Great Gatsby, like from the 1920s. You get that sort of feeling that it was wow, this must have been quite a house back in its heyday, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you get the feeling that that heyday has been gone a long time ago. So but it has this great vibe at the same time as being sort of pretty run down. And you go, so how do we bring it back and sort of connect people to the past and also sort of keep that interesting vibe that comes along with things that have been around for a long time, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And I think having a place for people to go, having a place, to be like a retreat, a place for ideas, a place where you can go and say, there's there's 5 bedrooms, so you could a wedding party can go and hang out who want to be connected to the river, not in a fancy way, but in a very hands-on dirty paws kind of way,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or you bring in, 5 scientists from 5 different disciplines and drop them in there for a week or a month and see what they come up with in terms of ideas and things that could help the St. Lawrence River and the rest of the Great Lakes. One of the most amazing freshwater ecosystems in the world, right? One of the most largest and meaningful. 21% of the world's surface water runs right past your door.
That's right. And I was reminded of that when I went to Tadoussac in the summer for a drive, and here we were going across on the ferry, and you're going, wow, all this water comes right past my door in Maitland, pretty much, right? And
Yeah.
of course the Ottawa River comes into it, but you really go, wow, we're all connected. This is a this is a big river that needs to be healthy, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All our lifestyles flow downstream, right? And I think we all need to remember that.
yeah.
Hey, let's talk about the big namesake of the property, the Maitland Tower.
Wow, the tower. What a, I get asked about that all the time, right? And of
I'm
course,
sure.
that's something that when you go up there and park, you inevitably stand in front of it and look up and open your eyes. And when you walk inside and you see the hole because it's empty in the middle, as you look up and you see the sky all the way, you just go, there's that real wow, factor. And, I haven't nailed down exactly what to do, except that I know that it's an icon, it's a landmark of the area. It's got history. It's been there, for almost 200 years. It's
Mhm.
and I think it really should be a symbol of bringing the past into the future. So of course, it was the first colonial settlement was there, right? And so the tower is a symbol of that, but it's also there, and it's going to have a future. It's going to have it has a present, and it's going to have a future. And you know I think a connection with the indigenous peoples where we've already been connected with the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne, so the Mohawks at Akwesasne, and we're talking to them about the whole site and how this can be really a place where the future can be defined by what we do now and what we do together. And so it's a place to grow from. And I think the tower, something interesting, will come out of
Mm.
just being in that headspace. And I think one of the things where and we've talked about it is how on one hand there's a drive to define everything and really know where you're going, and with all the buildings and a place like this, and say, what are you going to do? And I think one of the best things I can do is to build it out in a way that it's a framework, right? So that it's open. The chart house is open. So the activities that go on inside will change over time, and that place can adapt to that. And I think I have the same, hope for the tower, that whatever
Yeah.
we do there it can be adaptable, so that in 20 years and 50 years and 100 years, people are still really actively using that space. And it's for something perhaps completely different than what we're using it for now, but it will still be there, and it will still be the symbol of 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 the connection to the St. Lawrence River, and making the world a healthier place, and
Mhm.
through that connection to nature. And I think that that can take a lot of faces, and I think it will.
Everyone loves a good tower, but and this one is, I mean, just the way it was constructed. I believe you told me it was like 35 feet in diameter at the base, and then it tapers up to 18 feet in diameter at the top, 80 feet up.
Yes.
And it's all 2 foot thick stone walls. Just the ability to construct a cone shaped stone building like that, 80 stories, 80 feet high, that's quite a feat in itself.
you're really reminded of it when you walk right up to the edge at the outside and you look up and you're going, how did they keep it so straight? Because it looks like a straight line. And even though the stones are all rubble stones, they're just broken limestone blocks. So all those pieces are different. And then it's tapering as well. So you're going, it's on a slope and you're going, wow, these people really knew what they were doing. And
Yeah.
it really is sort of awe-inspiring to just go, how did they get all the way up there 200 years ago? No elevators, no lifts, they had some string and some people and some horses, and they had to be pretty ingenious to make that work.
It's our own little pyramid right here in Canada.
And it's interesting because in a way it's a symbol of failure, right? Because the
Yeah.
Longley, who ran the mill, built it as a windmill because it was a windmill, and it only lasted for 9 years, and then he gave up because we know there's not a lot of wind along the St. Lawrence at the end of the day. There's very windy days, but not a lot of wind continuously. Not enough to turn giant, windmill blades. They're like 50 feet long. So he had to import a steam engine to make his mill work. And then, so meanwhile, all those buildings are gone 200 years later. But what's there? The tower is still there.
The tower. You can't cancel history, and I don't think anyone expects you to do that. But I think it's great that we understand, and First Nation elder told me this, and I'm not repeating anything other people haven't heard before. But when we go forward into the future, we need to be walking backwards, because it's easy to glance over your shoulder and chart your path forward. But we really need to be reminded of where we came from. And those are the important lessons that if we don't pay attention to those lessons of where we came from, we're bound to make them over again. I think what these buildings and this project represents a lot of that. And, not all failures, but it's history. And we can't just cancel it out and say none of that happened and start fresh. I mean, tempting as it is, I think we need to learn from our history, all our histories, all our collected knowledge, local and traditional, and then the science that you're going to give space to give birth to right there in those buildings. It's a wonderful metaphor. It's a wonderful use of the repurposing of these buildings, Philip. And I for one man to have this vision and then to bring it about. I mean, you're like our own Walt Disney of the science world right here in Canada, my friend.
Oh, just a little. I think of myself the little pimple on the elephant, right? Compared to a guy like Walt Disney, just a small guy doing what I can, and I think I'm driven by making a difference, and nature is really important to me, and I think it's important for it to be healthy. I think it's important for everybody for nature to be healthy, and and the fact that I'm in a position to be able to do something to move that forward. I think that's great, and to be able to connect people, inspire people, and create a better place for the animals and the people together, and to have the water that flows by us be healthier and there for future generations. So, I'm just doing my little thing.
Philip, we appreciate what you're doing. Absolutely. And where can people find out more information and follow along with what you're up to and get involved?
Well, the website's the best point of contact, which is maitlandtower.ca. So not .com, .ca. We're in Canada.
Yeah.
And and that's the best. And we have a Facebook page as well at Maitland Tower. And so those are the best places. And I mean, you're not going to find any sort of big fancy things on the website, right? It's really a very bare bones functionality thing, because we're still, I feel we're kind of really under construction right now until we get at least the chart house done. So, and then, but for sure, but my phone number's there, my email's there, and the team that works with me, their contacts are there, and now is the time to get going. Now is the seeding time. So please do contact us, and because I see this place as really being a host place, right? So yeah. If you're aligned with where we want to go, then come on in. We can't do it by ourselves, and I think that's a good lesson for all of us. We can't do it. We all need each other, right?
I agree. We can race ahead on our own, or we can go hand in hand together and do something that's going to last. And you haven't just put all your eggs in one basket here. I mean, we've talked to Michelle Andrews about door number one, and that's sort of a not-for-profit that you've been involved with co-founding, that's putting all this word into action. So there's real proof too that things are happening, and I'm looking forward to, when door number one and Maitland Tower project and all this sort of comes to fruition, and together it's going to be a wonderful wonderful day. I want to be there, and Bluefish Canada wants to be part of this as well. So we're going to have many more conversations.
Yes, I'd be honored for you to be out there with us, Lawrence, on a regular basis, because I think, what you do is exactly an example of being completely aligned, with where we're going. And we have river access. So, come on down, and what a better place to co-opt the chart house and the field station lab and all of that is, and get people fishing and bring back what you catch and tell them about. I mean, this place is we're in it together perfectly.
Thanks so much for joining us, Philip, and let's keep this conversation rolling, my friend.
Absolutely. Pleasure. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Bluefish Radio. I hope you found the show both entertaining and informative. Bluefish Radio is made possible with the generous assistance from the following supporters. For more information on Bluefish Radio, and for more information about myself, visit lawrencegunther.com. Thanks for listening.